If the word networking makes your stomach twist a little, you are not alone. So many women in business struggle with the idea of putting themselves out there, especially if you have anxiety too. In today's episode, I am joined by the wonderful Erin Buck, and we are talking about how to approach networking in a way that actually feels doable and even enjoyable when you're someone who finds it overwhelming. We chat about gentle ways to start, how to calm the nerves before entering a room, and why building genuine connections doesn't have to always mean being the loudest person there. Whether you're running your business from your living room or showing up at in-person events, this one is full of practical tips to help you network in a way that feels calm, kind, and true to you. But before we dive in, if you're new here, hi, I'm your host, Becky McAvoy. I'm a multi-award-winning social media marketer, international speaker, and the dreamer behind Be Heard Socials and the Boss Your Socials Club. I created this podcast to help women like you simplify your life and grow a business on your terms without the overwhelm. So if you're ready for some no BS advice, practical tips and honest chats that make social media and business feel lighter and more doable, you are in exactly the right place. Right then, let's get started with this week's episode. Hi, Erin. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm doing well today, actually. Thank you very much.
That is good to hear. And I am super excited to have you on because you are brilliant and you are amazing. We know each other personally and you're a fantastic person as well as business owner. And we're going to talk about something that feels quite timely for me, actually. We're going to talk about sort of running a business when you have anxiety and networking specifically when you have anxiety, because obviously that's a big part of growing a business and running a business and all that kind of stuff. However, before we get into all of that and have a chat around that, do you want to tell me a little bit about your story in terms of how your business came about, how you became a business owner? Is it something you always wanted to do? How long have you been doing it? Do you hate it? Do you regret your choices?
Don't we all regret our life choices? Yes, I'll give you the abridged version. I had a bad back that led to a back operation, which then led to a second back operation, which led to a third back operation. And after the third back operation, I lost feeling in my leg from the nerve damage from all of the operations and the trauma that my spine has gone through that's led me into wearing a leg brace. So that's the medical side. When it all started, I just turned 40. You know, life begins at 40. They said that was a load of poo. My back started going, but I was teaching at that time. So I had to take a lot of time off. Then I went back after my sick leave and I decided that it wasn't what I wanted to do anymore. My kids had grown up, so I didn't feel like I connected with them as much as when my kids were younger. I knew what cartoons they were talking about and things like that. Bending over year 11 tables was not good for my back. So I decided that I was going to try and run a business looking after dogs. And that was my first experience of running a business. And I did it on social media to get noticed, because I've always been on social media because my husband and I have always been into computers and that kind of thing. I started this dog business that really took off and it became a doggy daycare, and a lot of dogs got dropped off at my house and I got to play with them and walk them and rescue them. But that's when my back went the third time and my leg was put into a leg brace to walk, because I've got drop foot. So if I don't wear my leg brace in the house, I'm fine. But if I go to somewhere I've not been before and I don't have my leg brace, I don't know where all the bumps and things that can catch my foot. And so when I first had it, was diagnosed with it, I kept face planting quite a lot, which was quite funny for the family. But, you know, I kept going down. So the doctor said, you can't do dog walking. You can't be running around like dogs. You have to give up that business. This was all at the beginning of 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020. So I lost feeling in my leg and was in hospital the week before we went into our first lockdown. They kicked me out of the hospital because afterwards they said if you'd stayed a few more days, you wouldn't have gone home, you'd have had to stay. So I was very lucky and I got sent home and everybody was at home, and I sat there and I thought, well, what am I going to do? I can't just sit here and do nothing. I need to be doing something. And I feel really crap about myself right now. I feel useless. My husband's doing everything around the house. I'm not earning any money. I'm not being with dogs to bring me joy. So what am I going to do? And I thought about what I was good at. And I thought, well, I'm good at tech and I'm good at social media and I'm good at organizing people, because I do that my whole blooming life. And I looked it up on Google at the time before ChatGPT was around. Google was my friend. And I put those in and said, what job can I have that means I work from home and you're good with computers and stuff? And it came up with VA. So I looked into what a VA was and I thought, oh, that'll work. I could get my sense of purpose by helping other people. And yes, I started my business in June 2020, right in the throes of the COVID. And I knew nothing about running a business in this way. And I just absorbed everything I possibly could have. And that was the start of Busy Bee. And that was 5.5 years ago. And I'm still doing that with slight sort of, you change and evolve as time goes on, but I am still Busy Bee, the virtual assistant. So there you go. That's my very quick abridged version of how I got here.
I love all of that though. And I was smiling as you said that because when I started my business, dog walking was one of the things that I looked at. And I don't think at the time I was looking at it because I was like, oh, what business can I have? It was literally like, how can we make a little bit of money to get us through without going into my whole story? But I love what you said around, like you love dogs and then thought about what you're good at, because ultimately that's like a business, isn't it? Find something that you're good at, that people will pay you for, that you love, because my God, it's a hard slog. And I actually went to my son's year 6 careers fair last year, and they were the 3 things that I said you needed to start a business. And I looked at all kinds of different things at that time, but yeah, dog walking was one of them. I never actually did dog walking, partly because at the time, to be able to afford for me to leave work, we'd taken my daughter out of nursery, and the idea of dog walking with my daughter, who was 2 or 3 at the time.
Yeah, that would have been very, very hard. Because as well, you can walk up to 6 dogs legally. You can't walk more than 6 dogs. So I used to walk 4 or 5 dogs at once. But luckily, I live in the countryside, so I literally could take them out of the house on dual leads. So I had like leads that were all attached. And then I just have to go around the corner and I'm in a field and I could unhook them off all the leads. And so they would run free in the fields and everything. But trying to walk 6 dogs down a high street would be a nightmare, because they get into a pack kind of mentality when they're together. And so then they start doing the rah, rah kind of thing. So, but yeah, that was a brilliant job. I absolutely loved it. I was going to get fit from it. I was not stuck in a classroom anymore. So yeah, it was a bit of a, I don't want to swear, but it was horrible. I was in a very, very low period because of having to learn to accept that you're disabled and that you can't, the plans that you had when you first got married, or, this is what we're going to do when our kids grow up, you realize that those aren't going to happen anymore. So you have to deal with that. And then to feel like, well, what am I bringing to the party? Because I'm not earning anything. And, like I say, my husband's doing anything. So I sort of left my role. My kids were older. So I felt like I'd stopped being a wife, a mother, and someone that provided money. But I am also somebody that I can spend time being sad. And then I start thinking, right, okay, I've been sad, and I can get very low. But after a certain length of time, from experience, I always reach a point when I get low that I then go, right, okay, shake myself off. What the hell am I going to do now? And I try to think out of the box. So that's what got me to be where I am now.
Yeah, and I think that leads quite nicely into the conversation that we're going to have as well, because we're going to be talking a lot around like sort of dealing with anxiety, whether that's something that you've always struggled with, or when I don't know if that is the case with you, or whether it's more so like for me, it seems to be as I'm hitting a certain age and hormones are doing their thing, that it's intensified. I think I've always felt anxious, but probably like a normal level of anxious. But one of the things that I've sort of been saying this year is, like those low periods, they happen, don't they? And especially when life is lifing, or you're hitting a certain age, or like whatever it might be. But it's about, like the tools that you can learn, and it's how long you stay there. Because I think it's quite healthy, actually, like to feel your feelings and to feel low, and to not, the sort of like toxic positivity side of things really isn't healthy either. But it is about picking yourself up. And I think, and I hope that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, is kind of not necessarily feeling low, but like, what are those strategies and tips and tools and things like that?
Yeah. Absolutely. I've struggled with it my whole life. I just didn't recognize what it was. So last October, I was diagnosed with ADHD. And up until that point, I felt that everybody else must have felt the same way. But it was only when I got assessed and I went through the paperwork and everything, and I was like turning to my husband, who I've been with since I was 16, saying, well, everybody does that. And he was like, no, you've always just done that. I just, just put it down. It was just you. It's like, you what? Well, and then we started going through, and I realized then that anxiety came from the fear of not fitting in, because I always describe it as, I always feel like I'm slightly out of phase. I'm there, I'm present, but I'm slightly, if you thought about Doctor Who, I'm slightly not in the same place because I always felt like I didn't fit in, which gives added pressure. So as a teenager growing up, feeling like I didn't fit in created an anxiety of every time that I went. And as you mentioned earlier before pressing record, the aftermath of it's not just the anxiety that you have at the things that you're doing. You've got weeks before where you're anxious and it's building up like pop in a bottle that's getting shook. It's building and building and building. And it's trying to mask that so that you can feel that you are like other people and then go into their environment. Sort of people please is something that we do to try to fit in that. And then afterwards, you start going over the conversations you had and then thinking, well, why did they say it like that? Did I say something wrong? And, or maybe I shouldn't have said that. Oh my God, I shouldn't have said that. And then that's the anxiety afterwards that you have to deal with. And if you've never been in business, like I'd never been in business, I didn't know what networking was. Somebody had mentioned it when Richard, my husband, had started a business. And I said, well, what's networking? He went, well, you go around and you meet a load of business people and you swap business cards. I thought, that's not for me. No, thank you very much. So I didn't know what it was. Luckily, well, not luckily, I don't want to say luckily, during COVID, a lot of online networking started. And I think that really helped me because if it had been straight into in-person networking, I don't think I'd ever done it. I wouldn't have done it. I would have been too scared.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things that I wanted to pick up on there on what you said, because one of the questions that I was going to ask you, firstly, sort of like, how do you now define networking? Because what you said about like your partner then about like, oh, well, it's where you go and you swap business cards. And that's a very traditional sense of networking. But I think networking to some extent has almost got a bit of a dirty name because that's how people see it with those people in suits. They're trying to sell you things and trying to do whatever.
The old model of networking, which was where you could only have one business in the group that you're networking, you know, like memberships, and you have to bring other people into it, sort of like a pyramid scheme. And I do not fit well with that kind of networking. I'm not interested. I don't want to force anybody to come and join the same one as me. And I don't want to recommend anybody just because I'm in a membership. I will recommend you if I think what you've done is good. And I stick to that. So that kind of model, that old fashioned model, not for me. Even now, not for me. I refuse to join things like that.
Yeah. And I think it's worth sort of saying that now is, I guess the conversation that we're having isn't about that kind of networking. It's more about the community connection, growing your business, growing relationships, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, obviously, you know, with all those events, there's an element where selling comes into it because you talk about what you do.
A more fluid way. You do it in a more fluid, relaxed. You're allowed to talk about what you do. Everybody knows what you do, but you're not ramming it down their throats. And it's up to them. You know, you need to be visible. So you make sure that everybody knows who you are and that you are, but then you leave it up to them whether they want to come to you, because then you're not having people that you're convincing to come in and they're not the right clients for you. I like to wait until the right client finds me to an extent. Obviously, I still have, you've got to advertise. You can't just sit there and think, oh, I know, they'll come. You do have to get out there. But you're not just sort of saying you will work with me because you're part of this membership and I'm the only VA you're allowed to work with.
Yeah, so that is not what we are talking about today, but generally it's just around going out and talking to other people. I think some of it, whether that's at a formal event or otherwise. The other thing that you said was about obviously the rise of online networking during COVID, because my business started in October 2019. It's just been my business birthday, literally at the point we're recording.
You're a little bit older than me.
So it's it's a funny time to start a business though, isn't it? Because we didn't necessarily know the business world pre-COVID, when maybe that was like online networking was definitely a thing, but possibly not. I know it exploded during COVID because nobody was allowed out there. Do you think, one of the questions I was going to ask you was like a sort of realistic way or kind way to start with that kind of networking and community building if you struggle with anxiety? And do you think like online networking might be a big part of that because it allows you to sort of put yourself in a room without necessarily go somewhere?
Yeah, it was a big thing for me because I obviously at that time I'm much stronger now, but back then during COVID, I just found out about my leg and I wasn't driving. So all of a sudden I wasn't alone anymore. There was people that I would talk to. I started off in a group, not realizing that actually was networking. I just thought it was, somewhere to talk to people. From that, I got clients and they told me about a different membership, which was Digital Women. So I went into Digital Women, which taught me a lot about networking and talking to other women. And then from that, I met another person that told me about a different membership. And I believe, I like to think that I've always tried to stick to 2 memberships to do networking in. And then after a while, it's okay to leave because you know the people that are there. But by that time, you've put the effort in so that they're friends, and you find that you end up coming back and forward with it, if you know what I mean. So you don't have to leave. I mean, I stayed in my memberships for a long period of time. I'm still in 2 of them. But I'm always on the lookout for another one. And again, not because I'm going there networking for my business, though it is a factor. It's also to talk to people that know what it's like. That's the kind of memberships that I go to. So once I find them, I feel really comfortable after a couple of times, because I get embarrassed because I talk too much and I talk over people, which I don't mean to do it. It's because my brain's going so fast that I feel like I have to talk. And I know that that can annoy other people. So I'm a bit wary at first. And then I think I come out, and then I sort of, if it's in the right place, people don't seem to care. So then I've got that confidence. So I sort of like, I suppose, tip your toes in the puddle. And if I click with it, then I feel a lot more confident. But if that was different and in a real person setting, I probably would make excuses and cancel because I wouldn't know anybody in there. I try to know people. And so now the real life networking that I do, I tend to go with people I've already met online, because I'm already comfortable with them. So I find that helps a lot. So I would say if anyone wanted to go to real life networking, online networking is definitely for people with anxiety a good place to start. I still cannot stand breakout rooms, but I'm getting better at it. Because again, that's still like being put with people that you don't know. But I've got used to it now. So it's like saturation when you do it enough. So like step by step, I suppose.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, which I don't want to assume, because I presume most people do, but just in case, the breakout rooms you're talking about, like when you're in one big online sort of networking thing, aren't you? And then like on Zoom or Google Meet or whatever, you can split off into smaller groups, can't you? And I hate that as well. Just because I never know. I'm like, oh my God, who am I going to be put with? Like I can fit.
Exactly. Whereas now, if you go often enough, so like, there's been times that they've been doing it and I've avoided those networking groups. And then I thought, well, I'm missing out on stuff here. I need to get, this is the next stage I need to get over. But if you go enough times, you find it's the same people that come back every time. So eventually those breakout rooms get a lot easier because you get to know them in the big setting, and then you can go into the small out rooms. And if it's run properly, well, they're all run properly, but if it's run good, you get given something to talk about so that you're not just thrown into a room and told to talk. Because, who then gets the 10-minute time to talk about things? But if you go into the room and they say, talk about what you had for tea last week, it's funny and you've got something to talk about. And so you then feel stronger the next time that you get put into the breakout rooms and you get to learn more about them.
I think with that online networking as well, you can lurk way more than you can in real life, can't you? So generally, just thinking of some of the communities that I'm in or have been part of or whatever, where they might have the online co-working or whatever, but there's also the community space, and you can sort of lurk a little bit and get to, like, you don't necessarily have to throw yourself right in, as opposed to in-person networking where you might be asked to say something or do something or whatever. Or if someone comes up to you, you can't just blank them because that's just outright rude.
I've got a perfect example. I started off in the first in-life networking I did was lovely and it was small, but I just had people coming straight up to me and talking to me. And it was like, oh, this is weird because you're not behind a screen. 2, you're very close. And then someone else was there and then someone else. And then it became overwhelming. But nobody was doing anything wrong. It's just I wasn't used to it. So, that point, I step away and I explain to people so that people know. And it's like, it's not an excuse, but it's just an explanation that I just got to take 5 minutes. And then I step away. If it's in an environment I step away from it. I think that particular time I stepped away from it and went and bought a beer and drank a beer in the bar. Not that I advocate drinking alcohol to help your anxiety, but it was the right time. So I stepped away and I had a drink, and then went back in again, and it wasn't so bad. But I had to break it up. It was just too much otherwise.
Yeah, and I think some of that is about knowing yourself, isn't it? And then setting boundaries around that. So, even knowing that it's okay to step away or just say, I just need 5 minutes or whatever it might be. Because I think you're right. Like, I think online networking is a great place to start. And I now like the balance of both, like online and in person, because nothing beats in person. Like, it is a better connection in person. person, you really get to know people on a more human level.
See, I would disagree, you see. I think online networking, for me, because that's where I started, I think I make more connections and have connected more with people, probably because I'm more relaxed than doing it. But saying that, I have started going to like coffee morning, like networking kind of things. Again, a more relaxed kind of networking, but still networking. We all know why we're still there, but they're smaller and I like them, but I wouldn't say that I just still to this day prefer online. I just feel, I suppose, safer. I'm in my own environment. I'm behind a camera. So I have barely any. And obviously, I said to you earlier, because we've already met in person, I had no anxiety. First time ever, I had no anxiety about doing this podcast because I felt comfortable with you because we've spent a bit of time together. So I'm much more relaxed about it. But if you were someone that I'd just never met before, or if it was going into a real life networking thing, then I would have some form of anxiety in some way from it.
Well, firstly, I feel genuinely really lovely for you to say, because that is like, I take that as a real compliment because I think that is really nice. But I suppose that's an interesting what you said around, you sort of see it the other way around. I think for me, that in-person connection just really, maybe I suppose that the in-person networking is difficult when you're literally meeting people for the first time. But I think, for example, we met at the Digital Women Awards in person for the first time, didn't we? We'd been on various different online stuff. And I feel like once you meet someone, you can sort of feel like you know them anyway. But when you meet someone in person, I don't know, and that might just be a personal thing for me, to be fair, but like it really feels like that connection goes to.
But again, it's sort of like you've met online first. So would I have that connect? Well, not that I'm saying I wouldn't. I think we would, because we're very alike and we do chat, get going when we're chatting. But because I've had the scary bit taken away by learning to see who you are, watched your socials, listened to your podcasts, had conversations, and then met you in person, and we happened to be on the same table, I got to have a little bit of more of a laugh with you. And then from that, obviously, we arranged meeting up for lunch and stuff, and it felt like we'd been friends for ages because it had been built up step by step. It was like, you can't see it, but I suppose it's a slowly building to it to get to that point. Would I have done that if we had just been thrown on a table together?
Yeah, we probably wouldn't have had the same level of conversation, actually. And just what you were saying is interesting, because I hear people a lot say about like, oh, and I'm not saying this is why you need social media, but like, oh, I don't need social media because I get most of my referrals through networking, or, networking is where I do this. But actually, I think people forget that, say, for example, we had met in person at a networking thing the first time. Something like social media or online networking, whatever it might be, allows you to follow up that relationship. So by the next in-person networking coffee morning that you go to, you've jumped ahead like 4 or 5 steps in a relationship, because it's not like you're only meeting for the second time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's really good for building those. So like, you could meet someone in person, say, for example, at Digital Women. And if we had no prior experience to that, connected on socials or whatever, and then had a chat because we both show up on socials and that kind of thing.
Well, I can use an example, because Suzanne, your friend, who was also on the table, I think we followed one another, but I didn't know anything about her. And how she was at the table, she was so, like the words gregarious or whatever, and the way that she got us all clapping for everybody kind of thing. She made me laugh so much. And from that, I ended up having a conversation. And even though I've never met her again in real life, we chat on and off through Instagram. So again, we have a level of chat, but not the same that you and I have, because I met you first. And I met you both at the same place, but one was stronger because I've done the online networking first. But again, that's just a personal preference, because of the fact that I have the anxiety about meeting people and the self-esteem hit that it gives me. Because then you go through the whole, well, I didn't fit in and they didn't find that joke funny. And oh my God, I'm not good at this and I don't ever want to do it again. And oh my God, they hate me. You have all that kind of thing that makes you hesitant to then go to the next in life thingamajiggy. So I do prefer to start with online, but I've started going to these networkings that I went with, I went with somebody, and I really enjoyed it. And I've said I'll go back, but I would have to go with my friend a few times before I decide to go on my own. And I keep looking at networking events for where I am. And I keep saying, oh, I must go. But because I don't know anybody going, it's something that I end up going, oh no, I've not got time. I've got to do something else.
You're right. I do think that really helps. But like I said, I suppose if you do flip that and you do go to events and meet someone there, like you and Sue's met at the Digital Women Awards, the online can then help you build that.
Yeah. Because otherwise, where would we ever meet again? Quite a lot of my networking, because of online networking, unfortunately, is down in London, just because it's expensive. But I've met a lot of people that I want to go to London to see, because I've built that over the 5 years by online networking. I would never have met them otherwise. I would have been sticking, because I'm a mum and a wife and I have a house, I cannot keep going to London and all these other places to network with people. So my world would have been a hell of a lot smaller. It would have been very much just the Northwest. Whereas the networking I get to do online, I have people from London that I work with, and I had people from Spain that I've worked with. That would never have happened if I didn't have online networking. So I'll always be a lover of online networking.
Yeah, which is amazing, actually, because I mean, in Boss Your Socials Club, we've got people in like Canada and Arizona, had people in Italy before. Like, it's incredible, actually, that you can have that reach, and that's come through online networking, which is amazing. And I think, do you know what? This has been quite a nice conversation, in that I feel like there's been a lot of sort of shade thrown towards online networking recently, where they're like, oh, you know, we're out of that. In person is where it's at. In person is all of that. But you're right. Especially if you are anxious or you have anxiety, I think it really helps build that and show the value of it.
I was going to say, this is what I don't like about certain social media. When people start on a trend of dissing other businesses or the way that they do businesses or online networking, why do you have to do your marketing by saying that something's rubbish and make people feel, oh, well, I'm doing this wrong because I want to do it that way? Why can't we have a hybrid? Why we're at the stage now, we have this technology for a reason. It ain't going anywhere. So you embrace it and you use it the best way that you can for your business, for your mental health, for you and how it works. And who dictates that you must do written life or you must do online? So I've always thought that, both inline networking is there, online networking is there. So why not use both? You're in control of it. So you decide how much you're going to put into each, and don't let people make you feel crap because you're doing it your way. If it works, do it your way.
And there's also an awful amount of time saving and cost saving when you're doing online networking as well. So it might be down to, circumstances as well. But I think when people diss anything, whether it's online networking or something else, I generally find it's because they sell the alternative, or the
Absolutely.
benefits them. It's the same as all the stuff around like social media. No, you don't need social media. Go away from social media. By the way, I've got an email marketing course if you've done, and it's just like, do you know what? But yeah, you don't have to diss something to make. I see it the same about Instagram as well. I think this might be one of my issues with LinkedIn, but when it's like, oh, Instagram's terrible, and it's like, come and buy my LinkedIn course. It's like, you do know that you don't have to slate something to get.
If your work is good enough, why do you need to say? And it's just, I can remember my dad when I was a kid saying to me, I'm willing to listen to anything that people want to say to me, but the minute they start slagging off their competitors, that's it. I'm not interested, because why do they have to waste their energy slagging off somebody else when they should be using their energy to tell me why they're good? So don't do it. And that's always stuck in my head. So when people start slagging, I mean, you can complain. I mean, I've done it. I do post about, such and such, this thing really annoys me, but it's never directed at a particular person or a particular scheme of how they work or anything. It's something that has bugged me. The minute I read something like, why do people do this or they're doing this wrong? It's like, why make somebody feel bad? That's fine. Just tell them how to do it right. Don't be telling them that they're wrong.
Difference between having a moan and slating something, isn't there? Because I mean, I moaned about Instagram literally this morning because it posted my reel with the music sped up when I hadn't posted it. I hadn't scheduled it with the music sped up. You can have a moan about something without going, it's just absolutely terrible, no one use it. Do you have any sort of practical things that you do to sort of calm your nerves before, whether it's online or in person networking, actually? Because I get anxious about the online networking. It doesn't take that away. It doesn't take that away. But are there any sort of practical things or little rituals that you have, whether it's before online networking or in person, that you do that sort of helps calm your nerves a bit?
So online networking, if it's the first time kind of thing, it's good to I ground myself, as they say. I don't want to sound woo-woo or anything like that, but I get myself a drink and I sit down, and before I make sure that everything's working, and then before I pause, before I press the button to do it. And I give myself my reminders as well. Don't talk too much. Don't talk over people. be nice and clear, don't be rude. Obviously, they all go out the window when I start because I'm well known for being rude by mistake. But I do try. So I sort of give myself a pep talk. And then only then when I'm calm, then I'll press the join in button. So I always make sure that I'm early. So like being freelance, it starts at 9:15. Quite often I'm sat ready at 9:00. And I always joke about, I'm very eager, but it's not. It's like I've put the camera and I'm in the waiting room, but I'm using that time to sort of breathe, lower my heart rate, because obviously that's going to have sped up, get my coffee. And quite often a few people come in before everybody. So it's sort of, again, I've slowly gone in, seen people, and then everybody else comes in. So I'm not being suddenly walking into a room or logging on to a room where there's a load of people staring. I've gone in there slowly first and, Steve might say hi or whatever, and then I can go into that one. That's why I like being freelance. Is probably one of my favorite ones because it's relaxed. They make a joke and I get in there slowly. And then I can be quiet if there's loads of people, and then I'm hiding. You're seeing people, but you don't have to talk to them. Other ones that have the breakout rooms, again, beforehand, once you're in there, you're in there. So it has to be the whole grounding thing. In life ones, I've got a load of strategies. If I'm going somewhere, I Google it beforehand, and then I don't just Google so that you can see it on a map. I Google Earth it so that I do the route from where I'm going to arrive to how I'm going to get there, whether it is where's the nearest car park. And I use the thing that Google does with the camera so that it looks like I am actually there. And I walk that route so that I can memorize what the route is. So when the day comes and I walk that route, I've already done it. I've already been there. So it feels like I've already got past that first nerve bit because I've already done this. I know exactly where everything is going to be. That helps me a lot. And then again, I try to go with somebody that I know the first couple of times, because not that I'm like needy and clinging on to them, but just having that support that I know that I can turn and talk to them if I'm feeling nervous. There's that. And then the third one, really, these are the ones I use the most, is I have my mobile phone. Because if I start to panic, I start texting Richard, my husband, or Claire, my best friend, and they know that I'm at this event. And if I start texting them just as, how are you? They go, all right, okay, she needs to talk to somebody. And so they'll text me back, no matter how busy they are, to let me have. So then it looks like you're busy, so people don't approach you. And at the same time, I've got somebody talking to me and grounding me as well by everything's fine. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm taking 5 minutes talking to you. Everything's good. Breathe. Right, I can now go back and continue. So they're my big ones.
I really like all of that. And it was interesting when you were saying about getting to, because I guess that works in person as well, but getting to things early. I actually, sometimes with the online networking, and you mentioned about being freelance, like for a while, I preferred getting there a few minutes late because the idea of getting in when there was hardly anyone in the room made me really anxious. I think the first one that I went to, Steve wasn't there yet. And it was only like me and two other people who weren't overly chatty. And it made me, which is fine because that's how they are, but it made me really anxious. And from that point onwards, I was like, no, get there about 9:20 because then like a few people are in. So I think like, again, it comes down to really knowing yourself, doesn't it? And knowing like how you feel about that.
And you can only do that by experience as well. I've found that getting older and having my ADHD diagnosis opened my eyes a bit, that I realised that these things weren't what other people were doing. And these were my coping mechanisms that I've put in place myself over the years. They ended up to be things that I did were CBT things that I figured out on my own. But I now can see, I can sense when something's not going right, and that I then know to ring Richard and say, right, okay, I don't feel good. Something's going, this has gone wrong. And I'm now feeling, agitated. What do I do? Blah, 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 blah. And have those people in my life that can help me calm down to go on to the next thing that I need to do. But when I was younger, not a clue. I wouldn't have known exactly at all what the hell this feeling was. It was just me overreacting or being sensitive or, oh my God, why can't I do this? Other people can do this. I'm so silly and blah, blah, blah. Whereas now I can go, yeah, okay, this is what's happening and that's fine. So what am I going to do now? And I've learned to be able to do that. But I definitely think an age and experience. Oh, I'm sounding like my mother now. But with age and experience, you seem to be able to recognize it and cope with it a little bit better.
Yeah, and that it is that knowing yourself thing, isn't it? Spotting your triggers, like what's going to trigger you, and noticing it before it gets to the point that you feel really awful, you know, like you can, because I like what you said about like during the event as well, of being able to text somebody or whatever that might be, and them know that that's because like you need that. Like it's noticing that for yourself and noticing, it's advocating for yourself, isn't it? And noticing what you need and that kind of thing as well. I like what you said around the maps as well, because again, I don't go into that much detail just because my brain won't really let me go like do the whole route and all of that kind of stuff. But I've recently been to an event in London, and I mean, I've spoken about this openly on my socials after the event. I didn't actually speak about it prior to that, but the anxiety leading up to that event was like through the roof. And I do think that was partly like a hormonal thing and lots of other things as well. Yeah, it was through the roof, and it's going to make me sound absolutely crazy when I say this, but some of my, like I catastrophized everything. Like I convinced myself I didn't want to go, convinced myself that if I went, something was going to happen to me and it wasn't safe. Not the actual event, but like the staying in London, all that kind of stuff. And one of the things I did when I was booking the hotel was Google map it, look at the street around it to see, like when I was walking back to that hotel, where it was, how open it was, did I have to go down a side street? And really, it's very irrational.
I think as well, though, as we get older, we become more fearful, because I look at my boys and how unfearful they are, that they take risks. And then we'll go, oh my God. And then we remember, well, what were we doing at like 21? And then I start thinking about what I was doing at 21, thinking, I would not be doing that right now as I approach 50. So again, I think as we get older, we become more, from experience of watching things around us not working or things happening to ourselves, we do become more fearful, and our anxiety is going to get like heightened when you've obviously got kids as well. You do catastrophize because you're always risk assessing, you know, so that is your brain risk assessing. What you can't do is let the catastrophizing completely envelope what you're thinking, but it is a natural thing for us to do.
Yeah, I think it's where it starts to cripple you, or you do cancel. And honestly, it was my husband that taught me off a cliff edge of like, no, I'm cancelling the whole event and I'm never going anywhere again. And actually, prior to that event, I said I'm not doing things in London again, because I always work myself up like this about London. I lived in London for a year and a half, like worked in central London, went in and out. But like you said, I do think some of that comes with age. And since then, I've booked another thing in London in about a month's time, because I was like, no, that was actually really good. And I need to almost make myself do stuff sometimes. But what I did was I paid a little bit more for a hotel as well, that was closer, that was more well lit, that just made me feel, and actually the other hotels were completely safe, but that just made me feel a little bit better.
That's another thing that I do when I'm traveling, because I've gone to events in London, but what I've done is I've saved up the money so I can go my way so that I feel comfortable. As an example, on the train, if I can afford it, I will travel first class. I'm not posh, as you can see. But what it does is it gives me that little bit of confidence that if they cancel the train and they put two trains together, there's highly likely my seat is not going to have been given up, because in first class, they're the last seats that they give up. So that gives me a little bit more confidence that something's not going to go wrong. I pay a bit more money to stay in a hotel that's close to where I'm going to be, so I don't have to get that far. I don't have to go and get a cab late or anything like that. And I'm going to stay in a hotel that I like, you know, and I save up for this to be able to do this, because I can't afford it otherwise. I'm not loaded. But that's how I'm going to help myself be more confident and less anxious, by doing what I have to do to be able to enjoy something. And I think we have to accept, if you do have anxiety, that there's nothing wrong with us. I mean, you hear this statement all the time, you know, there's nothing wrong with you and you're not broken, but we're not. But we feel bad because we have this anxiety because other people don't have it. You know, normal people don't have anxiety. But the thing is, it's okay to have anxiety. It's learning to cope with it and putting your own strategies in place to help you move forward so that you're not cancelling. And I mean, I cancel things all the time. You know, Richard will say to me, oh, you can't cancel. I go, yeah, I can. No, I'm not going, because I'm anxious about going. Sometimes I can get over it and sometimes I can't, you know, and I have to be kind to myself and say, well, okay, that's just how today's worked out. what can I do differently next time to be able to go and do it? So I'm pleased you're going to go back down to London, though.
Yeah, and it's just, I think sometimes, and that will kind of lead on to what I was going to ask you next about sort of like after the event, but I almost needed to monopolize, and I booked it really quickly, which I don't normally do, and the train travel, because again, I'd have taught myself out of it. But it was like, no, off the high of going to that event, it's like, remember that feeling, remember how good, because a lot of my anxiety isn't whilst I'm actually there. Whilst I'm actually there and doing it, I feel all right, but it's just all the build up to it. So yeah, I think it's sometimes remembering how you feel with that as well. And sometimes, which again, but I mean, this all comes down to technique. Sometimes I'll voice note myself because, you know, like sometimes I think in business generally, I have days where I'm like, I need to bottle this feeling because this is why I do it. This is where it's really good. This is, it feels good. And I almost need to hear my own voice talking back to me going, you've just had a boss day in London. Like, you've had a really good time. It was fine. Like, nothing bad happened, you know, all of that kind of stuff.
Or get someone that you love to send you a voice note. The very first in-person one that I ever went to, I didn't mean to do it, but I had a client who knew that I was going to the awards for Digital Women and how much I was nervous. And so she sent me a voice note that I read or listened to when I got to the hotel. And it was just telling me how bloody amazing I was for getting on the train and going to this event. And it was really nice to hear it from somebody else. So get your mum to record, you're doing brilliantly and well done for going to this thing. And it helps you because you've got somebody else shouting for you.
Yeah, I love that as well. And I think that comes back to, and which you get from the more you go to these kind of events, the more amazing people you surround yourself with as well. And actually talking about, you know, it was my husband who got me to go to that event and talked me down from it, and afterwards saying like how proud he was of me. But also it was Suze that we were talking about earlier that I was staying with the night before, and she'd come up with a hotel, and I said to her, I know I'm being a massive crank, but I'm not staying anywhere but here because I just like, I'm working myself up and I need to give myself one less thing to work up about. And she messaged me back and she was like, you're not being a crank. Like, it's fine. So the power of in business for all kinds of things, surrounding yourself with brilliant cheerleaders, and in your life, you know, having a supportive partner, parents, family, whoever it might be. Like you said earlier, didn't you? Text your best friend, people that get it and people that understand you and love you enough to want you to do these amazing things.
Yeah, and they are out there. I mean, I know it's obviously I've got my husband and I've got my best friends and stuff, but there's been people that I've met online, like Angela Lyons. The first time I ever met her was at my first award ceremony for Digital Women, and she came to meet me at the front of it. And since then, whenever I go to London, she always meets me 10 minutes before everybody else, because she knows I need to meet somebody to then go into it. And she's never let me down. And obviously that collaboration came from online networking.
Yeah, which is so lovely. And you know, you're saying need someone to calm you down. Actually, that was one of the sessions at the event I went to last week, but just learn, because we can say all of these things. It doesn't mean these things are going to work for other people, but it might be it is. But learn the things that do regulate you. The session that I went to last week was about like our absolute number one priority as business owners. The whole theme of the event was sustain. The number one priority as business owners is to regulate our nervous systems, because there's a lot going on in life, in business, in the world, whatever, that is sending our nervous systems absolutely AWOL. So yeah, like hopefully some of what we're chatting about gives you some ideas, but or just prompts you to think, you know, like we both do that Google mapping slightly differently. You get to an event a little bit early online and I get there a little bit later. Like, it's the things that work for you, isn't it? There's no right or wrong.
Absolutely. You have to figure it out. You have to trial and error, and you'll find the thing that made, oh, that wasn't so bad actually. Well, what did I do? And then look back at what you did approaching that event and go, right, okay, next time I'll try and do the same thing. Will I feel the same way? And if it works, you can go, right, okay, that is my strategy. That's what I'm going to do. And like you say, we're all different. We're all going to have different things and different life experiences to be able to figure out what we're doing.
Is there anything that you do after the event? Because you saying earlier, I just thought that was normal. I actually had this conversation last week where I said, you know, we went out for dinner the night before the event and we met a couple of people we hadn't met in person before and had dinner with them as well. And I talk a lot because that's what I do. And then I always get back and go over. I'm like, oh my God, you said too much. Oh my God, you shared this. What do they think of you now? This, that, the other. And I sort of spiral and overthink it. And I said the following morning, like, I just thought everybody did that. But apparently some people just go back and go to bed. Do you have things that you do afterwards that sort of help bring you back down again and calm you and ground you, like after the event?
Well, this is a strategy that I just didn't know was a strategy, but I do come back and I talk to Richard, or I ring him when I get back, just to sort of tell him what's happened, how did it go? And then for him to, I mean, I don't want to say that all of my validation comes from outside, because you should be able to self-validate. So I'll tell him, and then I'm able to say, okay, that was all right, wasn't it? I didn't talk too much, wasn't it? And he'll go, yeah, you're absolutely fine. I mean, he wasn't even there. He doesn't know. But he'll say, no, it was fine. Sounds like it was all right to me. Don't worry about it. And then I'll still fester on it, but it's not as bad because I've had someone say, no, it was okay. No, maybe I didn't talk too much and things like that. And sometimes I do have to, like online when I do something wrong, I have messaged and gone, I wasn't too rude, was I? And then they come back with laughing faces going, no, you're absolutely fine. But then the rest of the time, you should really try to self-validate it. I mean, that's what CBT will tell you, which is cognitive behavior therapy, where you shouldn't rely on other people. What you should do is, technique is you write down what you think you've done wrong. So I've talked too much. Okay, so what's the evidence for that? Did someone tell you to shut up? Did somebody turn their back on you? No. So what's the evidence for you to think that you talked too much when nothing else happened to make you to stand that up in court, to believe that that's what actually happened? So I tend to do that now as well. So I have a journal, and I'm not a big journaler. Well, I've got ADHD, as you know, so I have lots of notebooks because I always wanted to do lots of journaling, but I never get around to it. But this time it's really stuck, and I've been doing it for a while now. And that I give myself, maybe not when I've come back from an event because I'm hyped up, but if I'm still worrying about it the next day, I'll sit down with my journal and I'll write down where have I been, what have I done, just like running thought. I'm not editing it. I'm just writing it down. And then if I get to the point where I'm thinking, oh yeah, no, maybe I did piss that person off. So then I write in, okay, so this happened. What's my evidence that says that I did do this and this person feels that way? What's my evidence against it? Which one is the stronger? And from that, I can I've learned to sort of bring it back down, that I'm not as worried or reassurance seeking than I was. So I think that's the best thing I've done lately, is to start this whole journaling malarkey. And I still do it. If nothing else has happened, just every day, I'll just write on it. Even if it's a couple of sentences, I just write, yeah, not much today. Sun was nice, walk the dog. But at least I've got into the habit of writing it in the book.
Yeah, I really like that. Journaling is something that I've wanted to try and do so many times, and I've never worked it properly. I do think we sort of laugh at the moment in one of my group chats where I feel like my voice notes into that group chat are like my verbal journal, because then I have to come back later that day and go, so I don't think that anymore. I'm fine, by the way.
You see, that's the thing. You've got that group that you can tell out loud, so that you get that part of the validation for yourself, and that's what you need, and that's okay.
Yeah, and having people that you trust enough to be able to say something that you can later say, do you know what, I was overreacting, or that's not actually, like, that's fine. But I do think, because I know there's a lot of science and evidence and research around like actually writing stuff down. I would really like to start that. And I think that would help, like where I have PMDD as well, like that would really help.
Because we're very similar, I can understand about how it's something that you've always wanted to do, but you never do it, especially when you've got young kids, because you're thinking, when have they got the time to do this? And that's when, because you see people journaling with all the scrapbook papering and the nice lettering and all that. And that's what I've tried to do for years, but my handwriting's not like that. I don't remember to bloody use the stencils, so I got a pack of stickers, and every now and again I put a sticker in that I like to make it colourful. And other than that, all I do is write what I'm thinking at that exact time. So every day, no matter what the time, I've tried to get into the habit that when I finish work, the first thing I do is I go up and I write in my journal. And that is, right, end of the day, I've had my journal. Now I can put my pajamas on, eat food and watch telly. And I literally, say, it's not thought-provoking. I mean, if anyone comes and reads my journal, it's never going to be turned into a book like Matthew McConaughey with his Green Day, thoughts and prayers and all that malarkey. You'd read it, and some days it's like, that is really boring, Erin. That is really, really boring. But then some days I can go back and read and go, oh, that's how I was feeling at the time. All right, well, I'm not going to feel that this time because I've already experienced it and I've just reminded myself. So yeah, I'm going to remember that for next time. Or sometimes your brain is such a jumble because you've got all this business stuff going on, all this family stuff going on, so that I can then write down, because when you're in the moment and you're anxious, you react quickly. And then you think, yeah, it's everybody else's fault. But then when you take time to when I'm writing it down, it's calming me down and making me evaluate it. So I can go back and go, all right, that's what happened. And I've only learned to do that in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that I really like, and I have to be quite strict with myself of doing this because I very easily fill my time, but is if I've been somewhere to give myself the following day off or a later start in the day so that I can just do everything sort of a little bit slower.
See, like I don't do the pre-event thing. You know, like you went out for dinner. So I went to You Are the Media in Poole, and they had an event the night before the actual conference. And even though there was friends going there and everything, I made the decision and said, oh no, I'll see you later. I went back to the flat I was staying in, rang Richard, watched telly, went to bed. And I woke up feeling not as anxious about going to the conference because I didn't overload my brain the night before with things to think about and be worried about before starting the actual conference, where I knew I was going to feel it that way. So again, that, you know, the realization of you take the day off after, I will avoid something the day before so that I've got energy to face what's coming.
Yeah, I think it's more just sort of decompressing from it all. Like I laugh with Rick when like he came and picked me up from the train station, bless him, because he came right into Liverpool to pick me up. And I got in the car and I was like, please don't talk to me because I just need and it is having that sort of like quiet time because it takes an awful lot of your energy, even if you're not anxious, to socialize, and it's quite draining. So I do like to do that as well. I am very conscious of the time because, as I say on every episode, I could sit here and talk all afternoon. I usually ask around what helps you show up on your business, but I feel like we've nailed that in abundance. So I might skip to the next question. What advice would you go back and give yourself in the early days of running your business?
I would have gone networking a lot sooner. I think because I didn't know what it was, obviously, like I said, and I went in slowly, it helped. But there were so many places that I didn't invest in because when you first start out, you haven't got a lot of money and you just think, oh, no, I'm not going to spend for that membership, or I'm not going to go to that network. That's going to cost too much money. But actually, you got to speculate to accumulate, and it gives you confidence. So sometimes in the beginning, I would have invested a bit more of my cash to join more memberships and get to know more people the way that I did, but do it quicker. Can I give you one more tip as well? So the very first Being Freelance meetup at Christmas, I went in and I had a panic attack, and it was because everything had gone wrong. The train had gone late. The hotel wouldn't let me book in. I'd spilt blooming stuff all over my outfit and I didn't have a change of clothing. So I had to wash it and dry it under an air dryer in a toilet just so I could feel more confident. And then I went in, all this had got too much for me. And one of the things I did that really helped me was it's about feeling, like being tactile. So when people saw I was sat there, and what I would do is I squeeze my fingers and I really squeeze them and I count. So I'm there, but I'm going in my head, just doing 1, 2, 3 and do it like that. And then I'm zoning myself in, and it allowed me to calm down. And I went on with the rest of the evening being able to do it. But I found, that was just a tip. Squeeze your fingers and count to 5.
Amazing. I love that. So final question to ask you, Erin, where can people find you?
I am all over social media as Busy Bee Bolly, but that's spelled not B-U-S-Y. It's B-I-Z-Z-Y, B, and then Bolly, B-O-L-L-Y. Not because I drink it, but because I live in a town called Bollington. But yeah, I'm in the same tag for all of my social medias. And then there's my website, which is exactly the same. It's www.busybeebolly.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, everybody go connect with her because she's very lovely.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I am really grateful you chose to spend your time here. Before you go, if you love this podcast and you're a woman running a small business who wants to make social media easier and business life less lonely, I've got something for you. The Boss Your Socials Club is here to bring you inspiration, accountability, confidence, and community. It's a place where we ban the word should because we believe in bespoke advice that will work for you, your stage of life, and your business. You'll get a monthly content plan, ready-to-use templates, accountability and action sessions, private member podcast, expert support, and a brilliant community of women who get it. It's like having a mini social media expert in your pocket so you can show up with confidence without the overwhelm. Membership starts at just £24 a month, and there's a pro tier if you want even more support. Thank you again for listening, and I will see you next time.